Thank you, Satya. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining this session. Let me get started by sharing my screen. Okay. I hope you can see my screen. So, welcome to the TDX replay session. In this session, we will talk more about Agentforce and how we can leverage Agentforce for MuleSoft, especially. So, one of the painful point when it comes to the MuleSoft is the documentation. So, how did we build an agent and how did we automate within Salesforce, uh, like for documenting the like hundreds of APIs using Agentforce? So, we will cover that today. So I'll go to the presenters. Today we have Gopalakrishnan TV, like a lead member of technical staff at Salesforce. And we have Ranjani Sundaram, a product manager at Salesforce. And it's me, Bharat Kumar. And along with me, we have Nirbhay Sharma. Both of us are a member of technical staff at Salesforce. So we are the building team of this particular agent in Salesforce. So let me go to the next slide. So Ranjani, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Bharat. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening from wherever you're joining us today. Thank you so much for joining this session. And as Bharat introduced, Bharat, Nirbhay, and Gopal are from my team. They're part of the engineering team, and they've written so many wonderful blogs on how to use various MuleSoft products and features with Agentforce as well. So feel free to read through them and then share your comments as well. Okay, so now today's session, right? Let me ask you all a question before I deep dive into the topic. Okay, I'm sure you're all familiar with MuleSoft APIs, and you must be one of the partners or consumers of MuleSoft, or any such APIs for that matter. So, did you ever have to go check an API for its documentation, only to find that the documentation is either missing, or it is outdated, or it's completely useless? Right, feel free to share some emojis that will help us make it a collaborative session. So I know all of us, right, see, engineers do a great job in coding with best practices, standards, wonderful APIs and all. But the most pain point that we come across when we ran a survey, the most common pain point that we came across from different stakeholders, the different consumers of APIs, that most of the APIs lack proper documentation, as in the up-to-date documentation, which is accurate, which we can rely on to understand the capabilities of API, etc. Right? All of us must have faced this problem. So from our experience, before we implemented a solution using Agentforce, at least half to 2/3 of our APIs in Exchange did not have proper documentation. Okay, and this created a significant challenge, whether it's a product team member or an engineer who's trying to understand about an API. There was little or no information available about that API to understand its business capabilities. So when we don't understand an API's capability, then there is no point to reuse it, right? When we don't know the exact functionality, then the purpose of reusability gets defeated. And adding to the complexity, all our APIs follow a standard naming convention, right? We have a standard defined for naming an API. And that naming structure that doesn't clearly convey the underlying business capability also. So without proper documentation and with complex technical names in Exchange, it was difficult for almost anyone to grasp the API's purpose. Right? And from our experience, this is not just our problem. This is not a problem with our team or our company for that matter. This is the most common issue across the industry. And we have some market research and analysis data that backs up. Right? Now let's look at these statistics. Okay, so we found that almost 58% of the developers rely on API documentation to do their work. But 39% of them say that inconsistent documentation is their biggest roadblock. Okay, so what do you do when the documentation isn't quite helpful? So if you're like the 44% developers, the second section that you see here, then you will dive into the code, try to reverse engineer and understand the code by yourself, right? Smart people. But people like me, the product managers or the QA engineers or the API designers, like who, we don't want to check the code or we don't want to be hands-on. Then how do we even understand the API functionality, right? That is how 43% of the team members try to contact the API owners Okay, they try their best to do the networking, try to find the API owners, check the history of the file, and then try to get some information. But if the person, the owner, is still with the company, well and good. If that person is in a different time zone, then there will be some delay. Or if that person is on vacation, then we don't know like how long you will have to wait to understand about an API, right? So these are some of the common issues that we came across when we ran a survey with our team, with our users, and see what is the most tricky thing that you find with APIs and documentation. So overall, without proper documentation, these issues create friction among entire teams, and they drag down the entire business outcome, right? So so we have collected these from Postman survey and Tenios research, which also shows that there are so many hidden costs to the project if there is no proper documentation. Yeah. So next slide, please. So that is the challenge that we faced, and let's look at how we arrived at this solution. Okay, so on date we have about 800 to 900 APIs in Exchange, and every API typically requires 1 to 2 pages of documentation. Okay, and we estimate that that will come across like that will be around 400 words per API. The documentation will be roughly about 400 words per API, and if you're doing a detailed, exhaustive documentation, writing about every method, every endpoint, security aspects, covering every aspect of the API specification, then it will take up to 5 hours per API for a person to write a documentation manually. Okay, so this is just a beginning. Now, you will have some APIs that are already existing with documentation, and every time there is a revision or version change, you are back at it, updating and maintaining the documentation again. Okay, this is the second problem. And on top of all this, we estimated that we are adding or deploying approximately 200 new APIs every year, which means that the number is not going to come down. The number is not going to shrink. It's just going to grow, right, every year. So what is the problem here? The problem is with the scalability. So how do we address this, right? How do we keep our API documentation intact, accurate, up to date without hiring additional resources or pulling existing resources from their core functionality, core work? Is that even possible, right? That is when Salesforce launched Agentforce, and our team, right, the Bharat, Nirbhay, and Gopal that you see here, they came up with this wonderful idea of using Agentforce to document MuleSoft APIs. Right, so Agentforce, it does the heavy lifting by using digital labor to generate accurate, consistent, and data-driven API documentation, so that our teams, right, they can focus on building new features, solving real problems, driving innovation, etc., which interest you all more, isn't it? So yeah, next slide. Now let's look at what Agentforce powered solution, how is it advantageous than doing manual documentation, right? So with Agentforce powered API document generator, we augment workforce, which means the teams can cut down the effort spent on manual documentation, right? The team need not spend hours together in writing the documentation based on a specification. Then the teams, the quality of API improves drastically because Agentforce is going to generate the documentation, so it is going to be consistent. You need not review the grammar, you need not review the spelling mistakes, right? So the quality of API is going to be top notch and consistent, so that your consumers, your teams, they can build reliable, scalable, and easily discoverable APIs. The main intention of writing MuleSoft APIs is to make sure that your APIs are discoverable and they are usable, right? We don't want to rebuild the same functionality again and again. And to do that, the new member or a contractor must be able to understand the functionality of the API so that he need not rediscover the wheel again. And third point, you see here, right? So by using Agentforce powered API document generation solution, we will be improving the overall experience of API consumers, and we will strengthen the ecosystem, which means that the relationship that you have with your consumers, your developers and product team members, or your testing team and your contractors, like the relationship, the ecosystem gets strengthened because there is no or less pain point associated with the documentation, and it is going to help your teams to focus on building innovative solutions overall. And it's all not about just saving time, right? It's all about empowering your teams to focus on the work that drives innovation while keeping your documentation reliable and accessible. So let's look at the ROI and other metrics in the next slide. Okay, so just a couple of slides before we saw that, to write a documentation manually, an engineer might take up to 5 hours, right? 400 words and 5 hours to write an exhaustive documentation. But with Agentforce, we are going to be able to build the same documentation using one agent, and within few seconds, right? Not even minutes. It's going to just take few seconds that you'll be seeing in sometime after my slide, and that comes about 98% reduction in the total manual efforts. So can you believe it? From 5 hours to few seconds, and that's drastically cutting down the time spent in manually creating and finding information. So you can do your math from wherever you're logged in, right? So 5 hours into number of APIs, into the cost involved for the developer or the contractor in writing these documentation. So that is the total savings that you are giving back to your team or your company by using this Agentforce powered solution. Right? See, most underrated area of API development is the documentation part, right? We build documentation, we use it, we deploy it, but we don't give enough care and attention to document them properly, which is the key for reusing APIs, which will in turn indirectly save a lot of efforts from rebuilding the same functionality again, right? So again, right, I repeat my same words, right? By using Agentforce, you're not just saving time, you're empowering the teams to work smarter, collaborate better, and innovate faster using our Agentforce powered solution. So with that, let me turn to my engineering team, Gopal, who will take you through the design and the architecture in building this.
Thank you, Ranjini.
Sorry, Gopal, you're on mute.
Thank you, Ranjini. Thanks, team, for joining this call. So let me explain how we build this using Salesforce on Salesforce approach. All right. So we have all the API specifications available in Anypoint Exchange, so which is our source for the data, and we can pull the RAML specifications available from. We pulled all the RAML specification from the Exchange, and we converted that into OS specification, and then we fed that into the Agentforce to generate the documentation. I hear Agentforce, we have used Agentforce Service Agent, where we were able to give the prompt and get the documentation back from the agent, and then we fed back the documentation to Exchange, and we get a manual approval from the user. In the chatbot itself, we show the documentation that's being generated from the Agentforce. We always have a manual approval. On approving from the user, the API owner, we publish the documentation to the Exchange. So that's how we build a flow within the Agentforce. And along with Agentforce, we have used Data Cloud and API Catalog. Data Cloud, we were able to publish this data into Data Cloud, which we helped in for our future use case. We were able to use this document to search the APIs, which you can see more in detail. So on whole, we were trying to use all the components that is available within Salesforce. Anypoint API Experience Hub will be, you can see the documentation back in the Experience Hub, whatever that is being published in the Exchange. Next slide. So I'll just detail how we take the API-led approach with Agentforce, not just for this use case, for other use cases, right? So when a prompt is being sent in the agent, you get the prompt and use Salesforce Flow to act as a invocation actions. You can build many enterprise actions within Salesforce Flow. So we were able to have a API-led approach, and we built an experience API on top of our existing process API. We recommend that you can also try this kind of an approach for building an Agentforce applications. Have a dedicated experience API on top of your API-led architecture, specifically for the Agentforce. Control the trust layer. In that layer, you can have also use the new product called Topic Center with a new API. So you can build a dedicated API for Agentforce work and expose whatever data that's required for the Agentforce using that experience API and expose it through the API catalog, use that from the agent. So all this will become an actions within the Salesforce flow or within the agent force. You can use that actions to invoke. So we basically developed operations like generating the documentation, publishing the documentation, and also viewing the documentation. Those kind of operations you can build with Experience API. We expose the Exchange API using this Experience API, and also the optional one LLM API. This you can use directly within Agentforce, but we initially built the solution. We using Slack, so we kept the same LLM API for generation of the content. But now with Agentforce, you can also do the same content generation within Agentforce itself using the prompt builder. And this is the way we can expose all our cloud application or on-prem application through the API-led architecture. You can expose this back to the Agentforce world. Let's quickly share a quick demo on this, and you can post your questions on how this. We'll try to answer that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Gopal. Um, okay, I see a lot of questions are coming up from the audience, and we will definitely address all of those in Q&A. We'll have the quick demo now. Nirbhay, can you please share your screen?
Yeah. So we have enabled our Agentforce DocGen agent on AEH, which is also known as API Orbit. This is like an internal portal for us where we have elevated all our applications, whatever are present in Exchange, so that users can easily come at a single place and find out all the applications which are there. As you can see, we have enabled DocGen as a chatbot. So once we open, like it greets us with saying that, oh, how can like we it assist us. So if we'll ask like, so if you'll ask like what are your capabilities, DocGen will analyze and it will provide us the information that it can help us generate document if we'll provide us if we'll provide it the business group asset ID as well as the business version for which we want to generate the document. So we have created a demo API spec in like one of our org which we are going to utilize here.
Nirbhay, can you just go to the exchange of that API and just show what is
Uh,
the current state so that users will be able to.
yeah, but I can do that
You can
offline.
stop
Just
yours.
yeah,
Yeah, you can stop your
sure. Give me a
screen for
sec.
a while. Yeah, please.
Just give me a sec, guys.
All right. Meanwhile, if anyone
Yeah.
has any questions, please post it in Q&A. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the Exchange API which is there. We have enabled like this is Nova Technology Institute Management System API. As you can see, the documentation is already generated, but we'll show you again how the documents get generated and how we are archiving the existing documentations which are there, if there are any. Yeah, so if you'll see in each and every endpoint, we'll have the description as well as the details on what that application will be doing. But whenever we land to at the home page, we don't see any information about that particular application unless and until the documentation tab of RAML is populated, right? So as we have API governance rules within like MuleSoft Anypoint platform these days, and we can we are actually adhering to those API governance rules. We actually provide the descriptions as well as the details on each and every endpoint what it will be doing. So providing it again is kind of rework, right? So just in order to avoid that, so we came up with this solution, and now we have a precise documentation. So once we are providing these three details, DocGen agent asks us to validate our authentication, that whether we have access to this particular business group or not. So once we'll do that, so it'll take us to a separate page where we just need to verify that this is our credentials, and once we are verified, we get linked to that particular messaging session. Okay, and then that session closes, and then we can just mention done. And as soon as we are mentioning that, DocGen agent validates that okay, the user context is updated, and then it will proceed with the document generation process. Okay, as it's going to be LLM call, which is going to take some time, so we have kept it async so that users do not have to wait for a long time just in order to see what is actually going on in the background. So it usually takes less than a minute in order to generate the documentation, and we are providing a document transaction ID just to for our future references if we want to see what happened to a particular transaction. uh,
Uh,
yeah, it'll just take 30 seconds or so.
Nearby, I think we could have cleared the existing documentation and asked it to generate.
Yeah, fine. No, but that is fine. I can show what the current documentation states, and then I can reflect that if the documentation is then updated, as well as like the current documentation pages are moved to the archived status. So as you can see, like within a minute, when we check like is the documentation generated, we are able to retrieve back the information saying that explaining what in a very short description what that particular API will be doing. And if we are interested in that type of context, then we can go through the summary of that particular application on like which will provide us a little bit detailed analysis of that particular API specification. It tells us about the security aspect of that particular application, what it will be doing, as well as like we have a separate resource endpoints description as well on what each and every endpoint is supposed to do. So all this is generated using the context which is provided in API specification, ramels description summaries, as well as at the endpoint details. Okay, and as it has validated that I have access, it is asking would I like to publish this documentation to Exchange. So normally a user would proofread it, but as we are short of time, I'll just publish it.
Yeah, just to add on advice point, right? So we wanted to bring in human intervention from ethics stand point of view to make sure that there is always a human intervention to review the documentation before it gets published to Exchange or any other portal for that matter.
Yeah, thanks, Ranjani. So we have already submitted a request to publish this documentation. This is again a async process, so that if the systems are down, then the documentation can be published without like user intervention again, because it is already like submitted that we need to publish this documentation, and we are good with this context. So we'll just wait for a minute or so, and then we'll check if the documentation is published. So as you can see there, it's telling that the documentation is successfully published, and we'll be able to validate the same if it is present in API Orbit, or if it is, or you can go to Exchange and validate it there as well. So I'll just go to the same page again, and I'll refresh this one. And as you can observe, there are changes in the documentation. The wording of the documentation changes, but the context remain the same, and we get the exact information on what each and every endpoint is going to do, as well as like we have a separate page for security on how to consume, and we have maintained some archive pages as well. So if a documentation is being updated, we are not overwriting and then removing all the details. We are pushing the changes to archive so that if somebody wants to reference, they can reference it back. So Yeah, all in all, this is what we are achieving using Agentforce as well as LLM APIs to generate documentation for our API specifications. Uh, any questions, team?
Okay, I see a couple of questions. Let me go through one by one. So Oscar is asking, I work with MuleSoft customer, not Salesforce. Is a Salesforce license a requirement or is this a standalone function? Oscar, if you are referring to the Agentforce, it comes with a Salesforce license. It's not a standalone. It's part of Salesforce platform. I hope I answered your question. I'll go to the next one. This is from Goran. Instead of generating tons of conversational documentation, is it possible to use the chat tool or the DocGen agent and just make a query directly? What particularly is needed regarding an API and get the directly from the chat? Yeah, we are working on that. Like we also integrated something called API recommender that is coming up in the next releases. Like in any enterprise organization, right? You will have tons of APIs. It's very difficult for you guys to search if you're looking for certain API. So this agent would be able to understand your query and search through over data cloud and get the particular API for your requirement. That is there. We are planning.
Yeah, probably in the next meetup, we will be able to show you a demo of that agent, which can make smart context-aware recommendations using phrase matching or semantic search for your API questions.
Yeah, thanks, Ranjini, for adding that. So next question is from Tony. How many revisions of archived APIs documentation is kept?
Yeah,
Nirupai, any
so
idea?
we are able to maintain up to 10 archival like requests. So based upon like each and every generation, we are able to maintain up to 10 like archival requests, and we are timestamping all the archival dates as well, so that they can be tracked and audited later.
Thank you, Nirupai. And the next question is from Sanjay. How do you ensure the generated documentation is from a consumer perspective and not engineering perspective? Uh, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so the prompt which we have refined in such a way that we are explaining that this documentation has to be explained to non-technical users and should not like have jargons which are specific to the engineers teams. We have provided some examples as well on what not to use and what to use, so that the LLM API has proper context and proper grounding and guardrails in order to generate like required set of description about the API.
Thank you, Neil. By adding to that, right, like currently we are taking RAML or OAS for generating the documentation. In further releases, we would be referring to the source code of your API along with that, we would be also generating an image sort of thing, which will give the graphical representation of your overall API and flow. Thank you. I'll go to the next question. This is from uh, Idardo. Sorry if I spelled your name wrongly. The premise was really good, depicting a lot of save time, but do I really need an AI to tell me that post slash student or a method creates a student record? Okay, this is the initial version, as I mentioned, the MVP one. We will make it even more better along with the graphical representation. Also, we would read the code and we would also try to explain what sort of transformations or the logics you have within your API in the documentation. This is the pilot version.
And just to add on that one, right? The enterprise level applications, we do not have like the specific endpoints just explaining like at the end, like I read few of the comments as well, that there is a lot of context which goes within code, what is not is which is not able to be assumed based upon what RAML is written, right? In that context, we believe we are writing proper descriptions as well as like summary on what a particular endpoint will be doing. And because we are extracting those details as well, I believe we are actually able to generate exact information on what that particular endpoint will be doing. Yeah, for the like use case perspective or for the demo perspective, we have kept a very simple API, that is where like it's kind of like presume that what that particular endpoint will be doing. But yeah, we are not even only checking the endpoints, we are checking the descriptions for each and every endpoint as well to keep that in context as well.
Thank you, Nirban. The next question is from Bahman. Which MuleSoft connector did you use for this agent? So the entire agent is built on top of Agentforce. And to get the RAML spec, we used HTTP requester. And on top of it, initially, when we started working on this, we were using Einstein. Einstein itself is a connector within the Mule. Now I think we are upgrading to the Agentforce connector. And another question from the same person, what happens if RAML is not well designed? Any recommendations is given? I didn't get this. Like, if you're referring to the recommendations from the Agentforce, yes, that is possible. Currently, we don't have that sort of instructions given to the agent. It takes whatever the documentation that you have defined in your RAML. I don't see any other questions coming from anyone. Isabel, I think we addressed all the questions. If there is anything else, happy to take it.
Awesome. Thank you all. If you do have more questions that you might think of later today, as you know, you can find me in the Slack community, and I can do my best to forward any additional questions you might have to our team here. So for those of you who are not already members of our MuleSoft community Slack workspace, I'm going to go ahead and pop that link to our Slack workspace in the channel. You can fill out that form to request to join, and we will do our best to get back to you on any questions that might come up later today. I will also be sending a recording of today's event and a follow-up email to those who attended and those who did not attend, so you can take a look if you have questions. Yes.
Hey, just I want to add it to the team. So we are Salesforce and Salesforce team, where it is like a customer zero. So we build this custom application. It's not a product that is coming out from Salesforce. Just I want to highlight that. So we have used. We are just trying to show you all like how we have used the Agentforce product along with MuleSoft products like Anypoint Experience of Anypoint Cloud, and how we build this application for our internal usage. And we are working with our product team if this can be made as a product to all our customers, but we are not sure on that, but we are working with the product team as well. So this is not a product, this is a solution that we built for as part of our customer zero initiative. Just want to add it.
Thank you for the clarification. Ranjani, did you want to add anything?
Yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to add on top of what Gopal just said, right? So this is just one of the many possibilities with Agentforce, and we wanted to show you all how we integrated Agentforce with MuleSoft to generate API documentation, right? So we all hope that you found this session interesting and valuable, and it sparked some ideas on how you can leverage Agentforce within your MuleSoft and Salesforce implementations and come up with more ideas, right? Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you so much to our presenters for being here today. We know it's a busy time for you all. And most importantly, thank you to our attendees, our community. We are so thankful for you. We love the opportunity to be able to come in front of you and share our unique and special use cases. So we appreciate the audience and we appreciate your thoughtful questions. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. We can go ahead and adjourn. Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.